as I'm working on, as I'm developing myself, as I'm choosing to see something through, when I set a goal, when I want to do something new, I don't allow myself to be worried about everyone else and what they think about my progress.
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. What's up, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, Create Your Career. This is conversation number 120, episode 196. We're hammering down on 200 episodes, and today my guest is the wonderful Alison Capra. What's cool about Alison? Well, a lot of things are cool about Alison, but I had her husband, Nick, on here as well earlier. Gosh, many moons ago, many episodes ago. But today, we focused on so much of the awesomeness of which she is a part of. And some of that stuff that she shared with us today is like how to break out of being stuck or comfortable. A lot of people do that. They'll, like, for example, she got a college degree, she had that degree and worked in a bar and was stuck there for a little while. So I asked her, how do you get out of that? Because you're like making enough money to support yourself, but you're not doing what you want to do or utilizing the skills that you learned. So how do you break out of that? Great answer there. How to own what you're doing, right? So despite what you think other people may think about what you're doing, like, eliminate that. Like, don't think about what the world is doing. Think about and focus on what you're doing and just enjoying the damn journey. So we talked about a lot of great things. She had a lot of unique answers. I especially loved what she talked about when I asked her, why do you help people? That's one of my favorite questions, and it's one of the most simple, obvious questions, and it always gets such a unique answer. So remember, you can find this conversation and all the other contemplations on kristoflewis.com/podcast or on any of your most favorite podcast listening devices, and you can find me on Instagram at Kristof Lewis. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, Create Your Career.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am always excited. I say it every single episode, and I'm equally excited for this one. So what's cool about this one is not only it's with you, which is awesome, and I've been looking forward to it very much, but I think what's awesome is that I've had your husband, Nick, on here. And to me, I think I've had only one other couple on, but they were on together. So it's cool to have staggered and get like a completely, like, talk about everything that you're doing. And I want to talk about like the couple aspect of it as well, since you guys just rock a lot of stuff together. So before we get into the rest of the episode, could you just please tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Yes, it's so funny that you said it that way, because that's exactly how we operate as completely in everything we do. We're a couple, but we operate separately, on most things. We have a lot that we do together, but we actually own and run 6 businesses, and we run a nonprofit together. A lot of those are e-commerce sites, but we have about 3 brick and mortar stores here locally that we operate and run together. It started out with just one business in the nonprofit and kind of just like trickled into several.
Yeah.
I went to film school, 15 years ago now. So my background is in digital media, photography, videography, film, audio, websites, graphic design, that kind of stuff. So it really was a nice, smooth move for us. Once we first met and linked up, we started really connecting, and like I was doing like marketing and media for his businesses. And that's kind of how like a lot of our story backed up. And then we both wrote books and we produce a YouTube channel together. It's really his channel predominantly, but I produce it and shoot it and edit it with our team. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool how you're able to leverage each other's strengths and skills and to have like that separation, I guess, that separation.
Yeah, we're really independent, but we definitely need each other really bad.
Yeah, well, and that's the awesomeness about it. I think it's so good to note exactly what you just did say. It's good to have that individuality, right? But it's also good to be able to collaborate, and especially with your spouse in something, or the person that you're with, and be able to strengthen each other that way. Because it's It's different, I think, than being just a business partner. And people on the podcast know that my wife and I have, we don't own any real estate, but we're looking to get into it. So that's something we're working on together. And it's something we've never done before, like, is work together in that capacity. So I understand, like, it's one thing having a business partner, but it's another thing having like a business partner that you live with, that that you eat with, and that you have all these emotional attachments to. So I guess one of the first things off the bat is like, how do you work through some of the maybe issues or problems that arise that are different than just having a business partner, but like working with a spouse? Because 6 businesses is a lot.
I think definitely, like, a lot of people try to say, okay, well, work and home are separate. It's impossible, really, when you work together, because you are like always, your head is full of stuff and you're like brain dumping something for tomorrow when you guys are like watching a movie or whatever. There's really no separation. So it's really more about finding like time to do stuff alone and like get away from the groups, because we have a staff of 17 now. So cool. It's like we'll be like in it and have a staff meeting and all of our managers are present and we're like go 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 go, and then like we haven't even like actually spoken to each other, like just the two of us for like a few days. We're so busy like managing people and doing different things. So it's really just about finding time to spend together, because there's not really an off switch when you're running and managing businesses together. I think, like you said, the biggest thing is just the strengths and weaknesses. We identified those pretty quick, and it was cool because we used to just be on the road together even before we were like married and we were just dating. We would just travel all the time, and I lived in a different city, and we would like get together and meet up and do work and then split up and go back home and like do our thing. And so we kind of learned how to like go with the flow. We learned each other's lanes, kind of where we belonged in the mix. I think one thing that's like a little bit challenging is because we're both a little competitive. Yeah. And, when he started out, he was really in the gun industry. And I'm sure he kind of told you on the podcast, he like transitioned over into like really, and I kind of encouraged it and really pushed it out of him because I saw how much he loved films and movies. And so like he was really into producing and all that stuff. And so I like really pushed that out of him and encouraged him to go to film school. And then he did. And then he starts getting better at me and a lot of stuff. And so then we're like, there's like a little competitive stuff. Sure. But honestly, I feel like it's good because we don't let each other get stagnant. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Well, competition is good. Yeah. I mean, like, just again, like if we can say just in business, competition is good. It drives innovation. So it's cool to see that you have that within your relationship as well, like in a healthy way. And I'm sure sometimes it's like, it's like any relationship.
I'm like, stepping on my toes.
That's so funny. But yeah, I mean, you guys are absolutely crushing it. So you said you went to school for this and you've able to leverage that, which is really good. Like you're able to actually work in that industry, because a lot of times what I've seen is that people will go to school for something and not follow up with that. And that's why, like, if you're going to go to college, and college isn't for everybody, so don't think that you have to go to college, but if you do, like, I would want you to be able to leverage all the time, all the money that you spent. So you had I'm assuming, some level of passion for this before you even went to school.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for me, it started in high school. I was in like a broadcasting technology class in, the 90s. So that was a whole different animal, but I started loving it then. And like you just said, it's so easy to get caught up. Like I was bartending and waitressing for years with a film degree. So it's like, it's easy to go back home. If you go to college, you get the degree, you go back home. There's not lots of going on in your area. So then you're waitressing. And then before you know it, you're like a bartender for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to let that happen. And I think that's one of the things that like I really encourage, especially women, to get out of that, like, I want to say like safe, but it's even more than that. It's like comfort zone, because it's like, it's really not comfortable. It's really not, because it's like you wake up every day having to go drag your ass to a job you don't want to do. So it's not comfortable, but it's safe
routine,
in the sense
maybe?
that like, you don't have to like put yourself out there. And a lot of times women do it. I feel like, and you and I were just talking about having kids. I feel like a lot of times women will just kind of go to the safe place of like, I'll just be a wife and mom. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a woman, I believe sometimes we can put ourselves on the back burner, put our dreams and our visions and our goals on the back burner, thinking that it's maybe a little safer to just, take care of everybody else, or maybe it's can do it. You can just put yourself on the back burner or just choose not to go for it by just like going with the safe route, staying in your comfort zone, not putting yourself out there. And for me, like for years, I did do that. I was like dabbling in wedding photography, on the side, and then just like working in bars, waitressing tables, doing all that stuff. Cause I had some creative insecurity. I wasn't ready to like put all myself out there and to just go for it. I didn't feel like I had the skill set to do so, even though I went to school for it. Yeah. So it took me really like developing myself and developing my skill set to make that switch.
Well, it's really difficult to get that confidence that, you went to school for it, but it's like that classic pickle of you need the experience to do the job, but you can't get the job without the experience. But I think if you kind of take a couple layers off that and you go, well, I don't have the confidence to even apply that stuff. And that's kind of, I think, where some people get stuck, where that was like kind of a synonym, stuck being for comfortable. And there's a lot of jobs like that. Like I worked in the restaurant industry before I joined the military, and the restaurant industry paid well. So I almost didn't have, but it didn't pay like super great. So I was kind of like stuck in this area, it was like this Goldilocks zone of I'm doing okay, but I'm not like eating powdered milk or drinking powdered milk, but I'm also not like really self-sufficient. So it's hard to get out of that. Like, so how did you get out of that?
I think honestly, it kind of comes down to just, I really started to pay my dues and to work under other people to learn more about what I wanted to do, in the wedding field. Like I was making good money doing wedding photography and stuff like that, but I needed to get better and I needed to grow. If I wanted to stay even just in that industry, my skills needed to get better, because when I was started, there wasn't that many people doing digital photography. People were still shooting weddings on film and stuff. And so I had to like get ahead of the curve, learn how to grow my craft. So I really learned how to work under people that were better than me. Yeah. And then I did a lot of internships, and like, I was just talking to my husband, we were just like laughing about like I said, how much I got paid for my first internship? $0. And it was an hour away. And I worked, it was a hunting and fishing show on the men's channel. I think it was called like the American Outdoorsman or something like that. Yeah. And it was just like guys sitting in a duck blind for an hour and like putting together a montage of them going on the duck hunt, but it was on cable, and I like would work for that. The next job I did, I was like making $4 an hour, just basically, an internship. Sure. Just working under people to learn and better my craft, and to get to a place to where I felt like I was able and I was proud of my work. I started working for a guy that had a studio, and he just basically wanted me to run it, and he didn't want to be there because he had another job. So I got to use his studio as my studio. Oh, cool. And I would meet all my clients there. And that was kind of when things started to change for me. And, my grandma told me years ago, she died obviously, but she told me years ago when I was like probably just getting out of high school, she said, whatever you do, make yourself indispensable. Make it to where you know how to do everyone in the place's job and they can't fire you because they need you. And so that was like, I don't know why that like registered with me, and every job I got thereafter was like, I'm going to learn how to do everyone's job in this room so that if they need somebody or somebody's out sick for a day or whatever, I'm going to like be able to do my job, but also be able to do anybody else's job. I was indispensable. Even at my first internship, I'd gone to film school and they had me just sitting at the front desk and getting people coffee and whatever. But this guy started like on his lunch break would be like, hey, can you go and like log tapes? This was back when they were like mini DV tapes, and we would like stick them in and you had to record them to the big machine that like digitized the footage. Dang. And yeah. And I would log tapes for him, and then he would like let me mess around. He's like, if you want to like take a crack at this, I'm going to go on my lunch break. Well, when he came back, I edited the full episode for the show. And he's like, oh, you did this? And I'm like, yeah, I went to film school. Like, I know how to edit, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, okay. And it was this show that aired that week. I didn't get any credit for it, but it was
wow.
So like I just made myself indispensable and started to learn and do as much as I possibly could didn't speak until I was spoken to, worked my ass off, and just like grinded it out until I was able to get enough, under my belt to where I felt like I was in a place that I could provide people with something that they were proud of, a product that they were proud of. And I think that's kind of what it takes, is to like develop your skill set.
Yeah. And I think it ties back to that confidence issue we were talking about before. Like, the more you work for people, and then you're getting paid $0 or $4, and so you have a little bit of less stress. Like, I think if somebody was paying you a lot of money, you'd be a lot more stressed out. Like, oh, I have to like show for something. I have to do really, really good. But I think because of that, maybe it was almost a blessing in disguise to where it lowered the stress for you a little bit, or a lot of it. You may have been stressed. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but at the same time, the important part is that you're going out there and you are creating momentum. So you're creating momentum by obviously going out there and actually doing something, thus gaining experience. And then because of that momentum and that experience, you have this ball of awesomeness that you can roll into your resume and continue doing things and use that momentum for what it was created for, to go out there and actually do things that you want it to do. And then you're learning all these other things along the way as well. Like, how cool is it that you're able to work in that area, work for that person? And yeah, you didn't get credit for it, but now you're able to leverage that stuff for the things that you're doing throughout your career up until now, it sounds like.
Yes, definitely. And it was, it's a long road whenever you start your own business and you keep it going. And I had my own business. I'm from Kansas City originally. So I had my own business in Kansas City for years. And it was that, and that's how I met Nick, and that's how we started working together. So it's definitely like, I feel like I've learned a ton over the years. I definitely didn't think that I would be doing the marketing side of things, but I love it. I love all of it. And so like, I feel like my goal, now, and even with what I wrote in my book, is to just get women to go for it, whatever their passions may be, to go for it and to put themselves out there and to develop themselves and develop a skill set, and to like not let up with working towards whatever goal it is that they maybe saw in their little, 12-year-old mind of them achieving.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I actually wrote it down here about your podcast. How you spoke about encouraging women and creating, one of the things that I like that I wrote down was creating lasting changes in their lives. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of the culture that we live in is things now, like we want it immediately. And my perception is that the quicker you get things, sometimes, there's always an exception, but the quicker you get things like diets or things like that, they don't last as long. So if you gradually, like my wife, we were talking about children and being a parent. She had never worked out in her entire life. We had our kid and she started lifting, she ran, but she started lifting weights postpartum after she was clear to do that. And it's so cool. But I was like, you got to be patient. I'm gonna teach you, but you got to be patient. And now she loves it. Here we are 9 months later. But the thing I told her from the beginning is that exactly, and that's why I wrote it down, is I was like, listen, we want lasting results. There's a cat here. No, it's so funny because I had like an episode or two ago, we had a cat jump in the camera too, and I'm like, this is just, I have a my YouTube is being used for cats now, and it's like this perfect evolution. But though I wanted to say like that's what stood out to me, and that's one of the things I had told her, and she listened to me graciously, and now she's doing awesome. So it's really cool that you're able to deliver that to people as well, and help them through that as well. Were there any other predominant behaviors do you think that led to your success? Anything that stands out?
I was talking to a friend about this recently, and it's kind of cool that you brought up working out, because it goes into that realm, but it goes really accordingly with anything. Because when you're working on yourself or you're working on developing yourself, you've got to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process, like every step of the way. I mean, just like I was kind of telling you, my husband and I did IVF, and it's like, it's a long freaking road. I mean, we did it because he was fixed 13 years ago. And so he had to, because of the vasectomy being so old, they didn't really want to do a reversal. So they did this other procedure that he needed where they extracted, and then I got to do IVF. And it's like, we've been at this for a minute, You
guys' story is
but it's
crazy.
Like, if you're not like enjoying the process, enjoying the journey, then like you're going to lose it. Right. Yeah. So I think for me, throughout life, I mean, it did take me a bit to get there, but I've really tried to, as I'm working on, as I'm developing myself, as I'm choosing, to see something through, when I set a goal, when I want to do something new, I don't allow myself to be worried about everyone else and what they think about my progress.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that means that my videos, I post them like the way that they are, I'm not like obsessing over one not being that good, not being good enough. Like
so
that's
hard
where
to
I was
do.
at that time, right?
So
like
hard.
looking back at our YouTube channel, we're like, oh my God, like these videos were so bad. But you've got to like own where you're at and then enjoy the journey. So it's like same thing with fitness, like you just said, like I've gone up and down in weight over the years. I think most women kind of do if you're not like just a super athletic build. And so whenever I'm trying to cut weight or something like that, and I'm like in the gym, I like refuse to let myself like worry about what other people are thinking while I'm working on myself. So like, you're standing there at the squat rack and you feel like fat or whatever. And like, you want to wear a hoodie or like cover, like tie your sweater around your waist and nobody's like looking at you. I'm like, you know what? No, fuck that. Like I'm going to be here for me and be in the present and enjoy this part of my journey every step of the way. And same thing, like with the IVF, I was like, you know what? I put on a little bit of weight during the IVF process because you deal with like, hormones, all this different stuff. I'm like, I'm here. This is where I'm at. When you're doing anything that you're doing as you're setting a goal, you've got to just enjoy the journey of where you're at and what you're learning and where you're developing yourself at that time. And I think, truthfully, I've always said this. I feel like there's a million people that are better than me at just about anything. Like I am by no means like I'm probably a jack of all trades, master of none, just like Nick says he is, but like I probably am the same. There's really not one particular thing that I'm just mastered and I'm amazing at. There's 1,000 videographers and photographers that are better than I am. There's 1,000 business owners that are more successful than me. But the reason why I feel like I will go so much further than so many people is because I'm not ashamed or afraid of the process, the progress of what it takes to get me where I need to be. And I won't let anybody stand in the way, or I won't worry about what other people are thinking. I will put myself out there until the day that I die.
Yeah. I really, no, that's great advice for everybody to take away. It's essentially ownership of what you're doing, but not worrying about what's on the outside. And I think a lot of times that's really hard to deal with, but it's also hard to deal with like what's in your head too, because I know like when I first started the podcast, and I have my stuff on audio and on YouTube as well, and I'll look back at my videos and I'm like, God, that was so terrible, but like it doesn't matter because the important part is that you did it and that you are where you are now and you're in this constant evolution, this journey as you described, and that is the most important part. And you're damn right. Like I'm enjoying it, you're enjoying it. People like this do enjoy it. If I could say from one person to another to you, because I see a little bit of myself in you, is that like, don't sell yourself short. Like you may be a jack of all trades and you may know a lot of things, but like from the outside, from me looking in, like you guys own 6 businesses, you have 3 brick and mortars, like you're doing all this stuff. So you're fucking crushing it. You know what I'm saying? So like you are doing really well collectively, and you may know all these other things, but collectively I would just say like, you're doing really well. And it almost like since you did say, if I may, since you did say like you don't necessarily worry about what other people are doing, then like, stay true to that. Like who cares? Like if there are people better, there's always going to be people better than you. Right. Like always, with 6 billion or 7 billion people on the planet, there's going to be somebody that's better than you, but there's going to be somebody that's worse than you. And that's like the same thing when you talk about like, I hate when people compare oh, my day was worse, or this tragedy is worse, or like you can't compare any of that stuff. So I just wanted to point out, like, definitely, I'm like huge on don't sell yourself short. And like when I hear you talking like that, I'm like, yeah, you are really good at all these things, but collectively, it's like this collectiveness of awesomeness. So it's really good. And
thank
like,
you so much.
Yeah, like it's hard to realize that sometimes, and like that's one of the things I've talked about is when you're really good at something, you don't even think that you're really good at it. But this is like an issue that I've seen in a few things that I've done, and in a few other friends. Like I had a friend that was a contractor, he was a carpenter and all this stuff, and like, oh, he's like, that's easy, you just do bing ding ding, and it's like that. I'm like, dude, I don't have any clue what you're talking about. Like, I know nothing about carpentry. So that's just a point I wanted to make. But enjoying the journey, You're absolutely right that that's something, and that is absolutely a behavior that has led to much of your success, is being able to do that, to own those processes and not necessarily care what other people are doing. And you're right, in the fitness world, it is so easy to get wrapped up in, like, it's so easy to be self-conscious about what other people are thinking about you. Are they watching me? Because when you have these thoughts in your head, you're like, oh, they must be thinking that since I'm thinking this. And oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
It's true, but nobody's thinking that. Nobody's thinking about you at all.
Probably not. And if they are, they can screw off. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
One of the things I love to talk about on this podcast is helping other people. And everybody knows, if you've heard more than one podcast, you know I'm about to say, but every single person that I have on the podcast, I don't only have people that are out there crushing it and doing great for themselves and their family and their friends, but I love talking to people that are going above and beyond and helping other people, like we talked about with the podcast, and helping other women. But obviously you guys are involved with the Raider Project and other things like that as well. So I always like to pose the question, like, was there an evolution of you wanting to help people, or did you always have like this helping mindset? Because it can be so easy to just like focus on everything that we've talked about and just focus on yourself. Like, that's a lot of things, like 6 businesses. But what separates you from just focusing on yourself and your businesses and, you know, your husband and all of that stuff, and taking time to help other people? Like, why do you choose to do that?
I'll say, well, first of all, we have a really great team, so that's really how we get anything done. So anything
awesome.
that we get done is we have an awesome team. But, I grew up, my parents are pastors of a church in Kansas City. And so I grew up as a pastor's kid, and we did missions my whole life. So I didn't really know much else. Like from the time I was 10, 11, 12 years old, we were in third world countries and going and visiting kids in villages that had nothing, that were living in cardboard boxes. And so when you start with that mentality, when you're a child, like I didn't have the normal childhood / teenage life. There wasn't like this thing where I, ever really thought like I deserved to have this and that and the nicest things. I was like, like, you're crazy. Like I never thought like that. I mean, we were in the mission field a lot. So I never saw things quite like American kids saw them. And I always kind of saw myself as somebody who was privileged, even though I grew up in just probably a middle-class home. I was rich. I wanted for nothing. And I felt like I deserved to nothing but to give and help others. So from a very young age, I did a lot of that and went all over the world, even, in my 20s and 30s, just doing mission stuff. So it never really crossed my mind not to. I mean, especially as an American, like we are so blessed. Yeah. We are beyond blessed. Like it's, give me a break. Like if there's not a way for us to give, then, I can't even. So for me, the veteran aspect of it and connecting with veterans and getting, Nick started the Raider Project in 2014, 13, 14, very end of 13, end of 14. And he and I met very shortly thereafter that in 2014. And I think, I had most of my cousins are Marines in my family. My grandfathers, uncles, people were in the Navy, so I had a lot of military in my family. And I just always knew that it was very important to me to see those guys that as my cousins and stuff were getting home and just seeing what they were going through. I just knew that we needed to do more than what was being done to help see guys coming back, get the help that they need. So, Nick's approach has always been holistic to help the whole person. And I think just the mission and vision that he was able to communicate, and from the very starting points of the Raider Project really sunk in, and it affected me. And as each trip happened where we had people coming in and doing counseling with the guys, or taking the guys and doing, meditation, yoga, different things to get them whole, the brain treatments, all that sort of stuff. I was seeing these things come to fruition from his vision, and seeing guys get better and actually their speech change from TBIs and stuff like that. And I was watching that happen. I'm like, this is absolutely worth us changing the way we live, so that we can take care of people and make sure that they're getting the help that they need. So it's definitely a big part of our life, and it's something that I care a whole lot about. I mean, why not?
Yeah, and I love it. And it always seems that it's an obvious question, like, why would I ask that? But I always want to encourage other people to do that, even on your own journey, as hard as it can be. Share it. And even if you think you don't even have time to share it or to help other people because you can barely help yourself, and I am an advocate of helping yourself before you other people, but I think that it's not black and white, and I think that you can help other people while you're helping yourself, because if you do subscribe to a growth mindset, then you subscribe to continuous education and learning till the day you die, quite frankly. So if you subscribe to all of that, then by default, you will be able to help people while you help yourself. And I do know that you were traveling. I didn't know in that capacity, and that's why. And I didn't know you were going to that type of countries. Being in the military, deploying to Afghanistan, Africa, I've seen that stuff. And I know definitively, and I got to actually experience it a little bit before as a child. So I see a little bit of that as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that you're absolutely right. You're damn right. When you go to those countries and then you come back, I know as a kid, I was like in 6th grade when I came back. And I felt like I was on a different planet. Like, I mean, I shit you not, just like being on a highway, seeing big cars go by on a smooth road, like things like that blew me away. So that adds a perspective that I would always highly encourage people to travel and to see the world. And that's a quick tangent, it's not as expensive as you think it is. Go to conversation number 60. There's a couple on there. They traveled for a year on 10K, together. So you can do it, but you're absolutely right. It sets that perspective, and you're full of gratitude of what we do have in this country right here, and being able to help people like you all are doing, like you said, with Raider Project is incredible that you're able to give back like that. So it is very important to pull all that information out there and understand how and why it's so important to help other people despite all of the things that you're doing in your own life. And I appreciate you answering like that. It is very cool to hear that. It's always a different answer, and that's why I always will ask that question. So thank you so much. So before we get out of here today, I did want to say, where can people find you? Where can Instagram, websites, anything like that?
Yeah, so it's all pretty simple because it's all my name. So my name is Alison Capra, and that's one L. Everybody always gets that messed up, but it's one L. So it's ALISON and then Capra, CAPRA. So that's my Instagram, that's my Facebook, and that is my website, AlisonCapra.com. And that's where you can get my book. It's How Not to Be a Miserable Cow. And
I love that title.
Right? And it's exactly what it's about. It's how you can learn how to not be miserable anymore and to enjoy your life. And then also Nick's stuff is on his website. It's nickkumalatsos.com. That's a little harder to spell. It's KOUMALATSOS. And that will be like where you can get his books. You can also get my books, but he's the same thing on his Instagram. And we both have, we do probably the most on our Instagrams. We're the most active on there. But, if you get on there, he's got a podcast. We do one together a lot. It's on the Harbor site. And then mine is How Not to Be a Miserable Cow. And it's on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, whatever you want to find it on. And it's not only for women, but it's definitely something that I feel like I've always felt a charge to just empower women and encourage them to not be miserable, not blame other people for their problems, not be victims, and to enjoy their lives.
I absolutely love that. You all will be able to find all that information in the show notes, so don't even worry about memorizing it. And it's cool to have that niche of who you want to help. Like this, I do focus on a lot of military, but I speak to a lot of people that are non-military. I mean, it's probably been 60-40 not military, right? But it is good, that's your background. You happen to be a woman, so help women. You know what I'm saying? I have a military background. I've lived that life. I've transitioned out of it, and that's why I like talking about it, and I do focus on it. So that's awesome. So Alison, thank you so much for your time. I had a great time. There's a lot of great information, and thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night.
Oh, thank you.
All right, see ya.